Hello, this is Robert Messina, and it has come upon me to defend Ron Wyatt, who has found evidence of important biblical events. And I feel as if I am in a minority of Christians that believe the man. And when you hear the man talk, you don't get any kind of a sign of a liar. You get the feeling he's honestly saying what he's saying, and he's repeating over and over again the things that he's saying, which is not really what a liar would do. A liar would tend to disagree with himself in the past to cover up a lie that he had made, to cover up something that can be exposed. I didn't see any evidence of that. There was one little tiny little thing where the angel put the tablets of Moses on the shelf, where he put the tablets on the shelf. One of those two was true, and he seems to defend the most. He picked the tablets out of the ark and he put them on the shelf. Okay? Other than that, I didn't see any discrepancies. The best way I think I should start, I'm going to relay to one article. There's many articles that will try to shadow Ron Wyatt as fraudster. There's many articles out there. There's many YouTubes out there, and there's plenty of evidence of those that want to say, no way. And I heard that, within the Christians that I know and family that I know, and there's many out there, and I think more out there in the Christian community that think he's a fraud than there are those that believe him when there's no reason not to believe him. All he's doing is looking at the Bible and pointing out what you're reading is true. I mean, I don't see anything wrong with that. And I don't care that it's one guy doing all these things. I don't care. Because one guy can do it with the help of God. And he had plenty of years to do it. You know, he started when he was 26. He ended when he was 66. He had 40 years living. And most of those years was trying to tell people about what he found. Most of what he found was already finished in 82. So he died 66. He died 99. That was only 17 years. He was explaining what he found to people for 17 years. And he came up with a lot of opposition. And he fought the fight of faith. And he trusted in God. May he rest in peace. And I'm very sure he's going to be found on the other side. Jesus visited him when he was down. Just to let you know. They call him a liar. Go ahead, call him a liar. Jesus never visited him. Now he's just saying that. I don't really care. You mean to tell me that Jesus can't visit you? Jesus visited Paul. Jesus visited Peter. And Jesus could visit anyone he wants, especially when he wants to encourage somebody doing a good work. Okay, so anyway, I'm right now a Google search. And the title of this article, Has the Ark of the Covenant Been Found?, was very similar to the Google search. So I'm going to stick with this one and only deal with this one. I think, the name of this place, the name of this outfit is called Answers in Genesis. I think maybe they should change their name. After reading this article, I think they should call themselves Don't Believe It. in Genesis. Instead of answers, they should call themselves Don't Believe Whatever Genesis Says. Oh, it's not that they don't believe it, it's just that you can't prove it to them. Now, I really don't mean to say answers in Genesis should be called no answers in Genesis. We haven't got a clue. Because I've heard many of their defense, especially for young Earth, that they're very powerful evidence of a young Earth. And you can't dismiss the whole organization because they don't believe Ron Wyatt. I don't know why they don't. And the other thing I don't like is that they don't really have a good answer for a young stars. The stars aren't as old as they say, as the science people say there is either. Now, I have about 4 videos out there on how far the stars. So we have a disagreement there too. But other than that, I mean, I can't say that I'm not going to say throw them away. Put them on, listen to them, and go from there. So the question is, has the Ark of the Covenant been found? And Noah's Ark? And Pharaoh's drowned army? What about the Garden of Eden? And is the Garden of Eden? What does the Garden of Eden have to do with it? It says, adventures down through history have made spectacular claims about the discovery of all kinds of biblical sites or holy relics. The Holy Grail and the fabled King Solomon's mines, and more recently Noah's Ark, referring to him, the Ark of the Covenant, referring to him, and many more have featured in fabulous tales of adventure and discovery. Adolf Hitler was allegedly in possession of what he believed was the Holy Lance, the spear used by the centurion. What does that have to do with it? And Adolf Hitler is compared to a Christian man who was trying to defend the Bible? Adolf Hitler? Okay, well, who else does he talk about? The cup of Christ used in his Last Supper, dubbed by the Holy Grail. Also, he even made a movie based on it, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Oh, okay, so we're talking about comparing him to Hollywood now. Then there are pieces of wood from the actual cross of Christ. In the 4th century, Helena, the Roman Emperor Constantine's mother, made a pilgrimage to the Holy Land. Okay, so now we're talking about Constantine, Roman Emperor Constantine's mother, making finds. Who has claimed where the Jesus was buried and also where Mount Sinai was, by the way. Now he goes, could the Garden of Eden ever have been found? Now don't forget, the title of this was about the Ark of the Covenant, and the Garden of Eden, can it be found, is included. That's the first thing you read about. Let's see, the last thing he says, the garden's actually a location on the globe can never be established. Maybe it was where we find now the middle of the Pacific Ocean. In other words, before they talk about finding the Ark of the Covenant, they give you some kind of a story where they got a problem where nobody knows where it is. Nobody's ever going to know. And that's what they have. Okay? In the case of recent discoveries, however, the would-be Indiana Jones are very familiar with the Bible. Perhaps the most well-known are the claims of one Ron Wyatt from Tennessee, heavily promoted also by a Jonathan Gray from South Australia. Ron Wyatt has nothing to do with Jonathan Gray. I don't know why they throw him in. Why did they throw him in? Because Jonathan Gray probably said something that wasn't true. That's why. Okay, let's shoot down to some of the what they call amazing claims, and they really are amazing. They really are. You're right about that. Ron Wyatt has claimed, among other things, to have discovered the following: the Ark of the Covenant. Yes, he found that. The chariot wheels and other relics from Pharaoh's drowned army at the bottom of the Red Sea. Yes, he did take a couple of pictures of chariot wheels that are on the bottom of the Red Sea. Yes, there's pictures of it. And there's one that's gold because coral doesn't grow, can't grow on gold. So that particular one that he found is all you can see is the gold, and he didn't take it apart. He didn't try to grab it. He didn't try to steal it. He left it there. Okay? He wasn't a thief. But he did take a picture, pretty good picture of that one. The real Sodom and Gomorrah, with building outlines still standing as piles of sulfur fried ash. Now, this is answers in Genesis questioning the fact that Sodom and Gomorrah was destroyed by fire and brimstone. Why are they? And what would be so hard to find piles of sulfur and fried ash? What would be so hard about that? I mean, it was a pretty major city, and you know where it is. It's over next to the Dead Sea. Noah's Ark. Why would that be? Why would Answers in Genesis, say, why you're going to find the Noah's Ark now? This is too many years past. It's all rotted. Oh, you mean the ash? The ash from the volcano couldn't have covered and fossilized everything, like Ron Wyatt said? And it does show volcanic activity in the past from those mountains, and it wasn't the mountain of Ararat; it was the mountains, plural, of Ararat. The real Mount Sinai. No, let's believe Helena, Constantine's mom, as to where it was. She says it was on the Egyptian Israel side of things, not Arabia, where Paul says in Arabia. Ron knew it was in Arabia because, number one, it says it in the New Testament, and number two, it was, as far as those chariot wheels and where he found the Red Sea crossing, the other side was Arabia, Saudi Arabia. And it's people on that side of the sea know what he was talking about, because they believed it too. And there were two pillars, and he has photographs of the two pillars, which he says Solomon put up to commemorate the Red Sea crossing. And you could see it's in the language, the old Hebrew, where he would write. That was written on those columns. That's where they got that thought from. Those columns aren't there anymore. Okay, but you could see the pictures that they were there. Don't believe the pictures. I don't know. Maybe it was Hollywood. Noah's Ark. Now that's a big one. Noah's Ark. Everybody in the entire world living today are descendants of Noah's Ark. So deny everybody their grandparents. What are you going to do? Deny them their grandparents? No, you're going to believe it. You're just not going to believe that the Ark could be found. Why would God want to show everybody? I mean, he was showing everybody up until modern times. And people that live in our modern times, that we don't deserve to know and to believe and to see evidence of that ark. Why wouldn't we be able to do that, to see that, to believe that? Sometimes He wants you to believe the report. I mean, Thomas didn't believe the report. He had to be shown. And that was a negative for the faith of Thomas. Thomas had good faith. He was an apostle. I mean, he wasn't a nobody. He was an apostle. He believed. He just didn't believe that. That's all. He had a weak spot. We all do. The real side of the crucifixion. Oh, well, in the late 1800s, General Gordon pointed out that the place of the skull, or Golgotha, or Calvary, close to the Garden Tomb, which General Gordon also cited. So Ron was in agreement with somebody 100 years prior. All right? And that same guy, Gordon, predicted that the Ark of the Covenant was under the Mount Golgotha, just like Ron Wyatt is establishing. So he wasn't the only one or the first one to know about this. He knew about it. But it just didn't dawn on him until a supernatural thing happened. Ron was walking with a staff member of the Israeli Antiquities who was friendly to him. And as they're passing Golgotha, Ron's arm went up and he pointed to the spot where the Ark of the Covenant was located, which was right underneath Golgotha, the place of the skull. And then Ron put his arm down, and he realized he just said something, and it was a word of knowledge, you could say. He was gifted with the word of knowledge for that moment, and he has never really experienced that in his life before. And I think he said nor afterwards. So the real side of the crucifixion, apparently the cave containing the Ark of the Covenant, so that Christ's blood would drip onto the mercy seat. Oh, like Ron Wyatt could even think about that. How could a man think about that? That's something that you would never think about. Never. It wouldn't come across your mind. It never came across my mind, but when it did, it really, truly made sense. What actually bothered me in the past, before I knew this, was his precious blood is going to come down, drip down, and just go into the dirt? His precious blood was just going to go into the dirt? And Job says, O earth, cover not my blood. And I think that was prophetic. His blood wasn't covered up. There was an earthquake. You read about the earthquake. The earthquake made a crack. They do things like that, earthquakes. And it was a crack right where the post was, and it went down only about 20, not more than 20 feet down. And the ark happened to be right there to collect that blood on top of the mercy seat on the western side, because the priests were instructed to sprinkle on the eastern side. This was found on the western side, his blood, which was collected, and angels were there. And what, you don't think there's angels? Another thing, people, angels. Like entertaining angels unawares, that's a verse. Gabriel, didn't he speak to Zechariah? I mean, aren't there angels? There are. In particular, to protect the Ark of the Covenant. You would expect angels. You have cherubim on both sides, protecting. Nobody could even touch the Ark because it was so holy. You couldn't even touch it. You had to carry it with the post. Four Levites had to carry it. Okay, then the next bullet is an actual sample of Christ's blood with chromosomes allegedly still visible under a microscope. Allegedly, he says. It was taken to an Israeli lab. I mean, and they are the ones that made the proclamation. He didn't make it. They did. They had no idea. They asked Ron, whose blood is this? Because there was one Y chromosome for the male. Everything else was from the female. Whose blood is this? It's the blood of your Messiah. And he chokes when he says it. And I choke. This is what we're talking about now. And I believe this is going to be Elijah. The two witnesses of the Elijah side of the witness is going to be the blood.
Good evening, Ron. Thank you very much for all three for seminars. Wonderful, thank you. My question is that you said that you had the blood of our Lord examined by the Israelis.
That's correct.
What was their determination of that?
Okay. Now, we won't be able to take second questions. I'm sorry if you're on your second one, please just step out. I love you, but we're running out of time. Real quickly, okay. Dried blood is dead blood. Everybody knows that, all right? They can test the blood of the pharaohs, the mummies of the pharaohs, all right? There's certain things they can do. They cannot get a chromosome count by any method I'm familiar with, all right? Things keep changing. I don't profess to know everything. However, there's no way I know that you can get a chromosome count out of dead blood. You can get a DNA and some other things, but not a chromosome count, all right? That's done by living white blood cells. Now then, first of all, in this analysis, I took the blood into a laboratory in Israel. I asked one of the people I work with in antiquities, where is a good laboratory that does reliable work? And they said, such and such, such and such. I took it. I just said, please examine this blood and tell me what you can tell me about it. All right? They said, well, look, we're going to reconstitute it. We're going to put it in normal saline and keep it at body temperature for 72 hours with gentle swirling. All right? That's their business. That's great. I said, now I want to be there when you check it out. They said, fine. So I was back. They checked it out. I said, now, they said it's human blood. We can tell that. They did whatever tests they need to do. And then I said, take some of the white blood cells and put them in a growth medium and keep them at body temperature for 48 hours. And they said, well, that'll do no good because it's dead blood. I said, would you please do that for me? And they said, okay, we'll do it. So anyway, I said, I want to be there when you take it out and examine it. So I was back there. They took it out, examined it under a microscope, and the one technician called the other one over there, and then they called the boss over there, and they were talking Hebrew a mile a minute there for a little bit, and they looked at me and they said, Mr. Wyatt, this human blood only has 24 chromosomes in it. Everybody else has 46. You see, 23 from your mother, 23 from your father, 22 autosomes from your mother, 22 autosomes from your father. You get an X from your mother, you may get an X or a Y from your father, all right? This blood had 23 chromosomes from the mother's side, one Y chromosome only. You see, the child could not have developed if they hadn't had the autosomes from the mother. So all of his physical characteristics were determined by his mother's side of the family, her autosomes. His maleness was determined by this one Y that came from a source not a human male. Then they said, this blood is alive. And then they said, whose blood is this? I said, it's the blood of your Messiah. And I assure you, those men's lives have changed. You're welcome.
This side of the witness, on the two witnesses that are going to witness for 3.5 years, in the first 3.5 years, and we are going to see them, and you are going to hear about these two items. The tablets of Moses that were found in the ark by Ron Wyatt, and nobody else was allowed. You're going to have to believe. Happy are those, and he says to Thomas, you believe because you see. Happy are those who believe and they can't see. So you're better off believing what is told to you that does make sense. And you are serving a God who does know how to do miracles. He's good at miracles. Everything he said in creation was a miracle. There wasn't light until he said there should be light. Everything you see right now is a miracle from God. So there's nothing, you cannot tell me that this couldn't happen. You can't tell me. I mean, you can tell people that don't believe, and those people will believe you. Somebody that don't believe will believe that it can't happen. But not me, and not a lot of people out there that know God is a God of miracles. But these guys are parading around as they have answers. I don't see how they have that. What I'm reading here, I don't see answers. I see negative answers. Okay, so the next subtitle in the article is called The Non-Ark Site. Back in 1992, Wyatt's Noah's Ark claim, see, this is not the Ark of Noah, was subject to a thorough investigative expose in this magazine. See the online version. I'm not going to get into that. I got too much time here to waste. Watch with anything these guys recommend. But I will point some things out. The 13-page report told of how this ministry had checked the claims, even ringing the lab staff of them that had done the analysis, for instance. Sadly, though we would have been delighted if this really were the ark. Right, these guys really would have been delighted. They would have been delighted to find it. Right, they really sound like they're excited to find the ark. Do you think these guys are excited to find it? No, I don't. We find almost all the specific claims to be untrue or misleading. Now, the result of detailed analysis of this site, including mapping, magnetometer surveys, drill core samples, and more, enable any geologist to be able to diagnose with certainty the exact nature of the geological object. The discoverers have since produced a rebuttal convincing only to those who have misunderstood or not carefully read our article. They quote as support the well-known creationist scientist, Dr. John Baumgartner. And I'm going to show you a clip of a video of this guy when he's first out there and he's first finding it. I want everybody to see his reaction when he has this, I call it a metal finder, when he has the metal finder clicking in a not random pattern. And all of the little rivets that they see, metallurgical rivets that have titanium and aluminum long ago before they were discovered in modern times. Titanium is obtained from various ores that occur naturally in the earth, and that has to be processed into a usable metal. And so likewise does aluminum. It's coming from bauxite, and it has to be processed into becoming a usable metal that it is. And both of these were found on the surface of the earth near the ark, and they were understood to be rivets, and the pattern of the rivets is what is so telling about where the ark is. Okay? So this is something that God had to be involved in the construction of this ark. He was talking to Noah the whole time of how to do it. I'm convinced of that. But this guy's in the video, and this is what they're going to say about him. Okay. They quote as support of the well-known creationist scientist. Yeah, he's a creationist scientist, right? Dr. John Baumgartner. His face is to the right. But in fact, he long ago decided that this find was a geological formation. In other words, it was a natural find that you find in nature all the time, all over the place. This is not something man-made. This is natural, in the ground, metal finding discoveries. I'm going to show you the clip. And the clip should tell you enough. I'm not even going to talk about it after this. They also appealed to the late marine engineer David Fossold. Fossold, who had repeatedly rejected biblical authority, did originally think that it was a boat. But towards his life's end, co-authored an article in geology journal supporting its true nature. So he's another one that had changed his mind about the thing. I wonder why these guys changed their mind. Well, let's just look at the Baumgartner reason. One question about Baumgartner's reaction: Wyatt has claimed that it was made for fear of losing his job. And that totally makes sense. Because a government like we got we have a godless government, I hate to tell you. Satan is the power and prince of this air, and he rules all of the people that don't believe in the Savior. They worship the beast, they worship the dragon and the image of the beast. And they're not in the book of life. So this guy, Baumgartner, wanted to keep his job. Oh, well, I'm telling you, as a warning, don't be like Baumgartner. Don't ever be like Baumgartner. Lose your job. You're not going to erase all of the history of finding every ounce of work that man did, and a lot of people besides him. All of the effort that went into showing people that that Noah's Ark was found. This guy tries to erase because he wants to keep his job. He's full of faith. I'm sure he's a man full of faith, like these guys say. Because look what he says. Baumgartner has been known as a full-on creationist in his job and community for years, and had no difficulty agreeing to our publishing an interview with him in '97. At that time, he told us Wyatt's claims about himself were as bogus as Wyatt's claims about the Ark site. So, this guy's a turncoat. All right? That's all I got to say. Now, you look at the clip and you see for yourself.
Flow began up here. When he arrived near the top of the ridge, he found an ancient stele, like an ancient billboard, which depicted the boat shape, the familiar mountain ridge, several birds, and 8 faces within the boat shape. Clearly, this was a reference to the ship of Noah and its 8 survivors. He noticed a taller mountain peak on the stele that was no longer visible from that location. He concluded that it was a small volcano that had erupted long after Noah's Ark had landed, and that it had carried the ship down the mountainside about a mile, where it was impaled on the limestone outcropping, then covered in lava. The lava then encased the ship like a time capsule. The volcano then collapsed after expending its lava and was no longer visible. He then theorized that as the lava began to decay, water seeped in and allowed the remains to be petrified or fossilized by the process called mineral replacement. Molecule by molecule would be washed away from the remains and replaced by molecules from the objects and substances above it. As he examined the area within the crescent shape, he found a large section, 120 by 40 feet, approximately, of what appeared to be fossilized wood in the ground. He believed this to be the bottom of the ship, the original landing site. His conclusion was that when the floodwaters subsided, the ark sank into the muddy earth. This held the ship upright. Then God sent the wind to dry the face of the earth. The portion of the ship that sank into the mud was now firmly embedded in the ground. Many years later, when the lava carried the ship down the mountain, the main body of the ship was ripped loose. Only this section remained in their original location. Around this area that Ron believed to be embedded petrified wood, he found specimens of rock which looked very unique to him. He took several samples, along with several specimens from the boat shape below. Back home, he sent them for analysis. The results showed organic carbon, which indicated that the samples were consistent with decayed and fossilized wood. They also contained metals such as iron and aluminum. The analysis of the strange-looking rock Ron had found about 1.5 miles above the site by the bottom of the ship was clearly the most exciting. His initial analysis had shown it to be metals and not rock. In 1984, Ron met and became friends with Colonel Jim Irwin, the former astronaut. Colonel Irwin was searching for Noah's Ark on Mount Ararat, but he was very gracious and was interested in seeing the boat-shaped site. Ron had brought a metal detector to the site to see if there was a pattern of metal readings. In the presence of Colonel Irwin and others on his team, Ron employed the detectors. He found distinct metal lines down the entire length of the object, while no metal readings were obtained just outside of it. Ron asked Colonel Irwin, who had impressive scientific community connections, if he could have the strange specimen tested. Colonel Irwin sent the specimen to Los Alamos National Labs, where geophysicist John Baumgartner performed the analysis. The results of that analysis captured Dr. Baumgartner's interest. The specimen contained manganese, also titanium and aluminum, among others, and these were not in the form found in nature. Due to the sophistication of the metals, he questioned whether a missile had crashed on the mountainside and Ron had found the remains. The exciting evidences of the metal lines and the analysis of the specimens brought two new researchers into the work. Dr. Baumgartner and David Fasold, a marine salvage expert who knew all about ships and their construction. They both joined the team.
Oh, look at that. Oh, well, wait a minute. Wait, let me get a close-up of that. Kind of,
You want my hand in there for?
Yeah, just to point at those little flakes of iron that are coming out, like right there. There and there. Huh. That's a strong reading. Well,
I'd say that those frames right there.
okay. Keep walking. Do you want a measuring tape to measure these things, how far apart they are?
John, as a scientist, might I take the liberty here to ask you, do you really honestly believe that you have been on the remains of Noah's Ark?
I have no doubt in my mind. This has to be a man-made structure. It's full of metal. The metal has a regular pattern to it, and the size of the thing and the shape of the thing is such that it's almost certainly a large boat.
Dr. Baumgartner and Ron scanned the entire site with 3 different types of metal detectors. Placing rocks at each metal reading, they then attached tapes to show the lines. This exciting evidence also attracted the interest of ABC's 2020.
The boat-shaped site was first found and photographed by a Turkish army captain back in 1959. It was quickly explored and dismissed as a freak of nature. But Wyatt, an amateur archaeologist, rekindled interest in it a few years ago. He brought in Dave Fasold, a marine salvage expert, to assess it. The Doomsday Mountain team brought in some high technology to explore the oldest legend of man. They began scanning their site with a molecular frequency generator. It's a device used by surgeons to pinpoint cancer tumors, and it's been used by Fasold to locate underwater treasure. This time, the molecular frequency generator began to pick up a unique pattern of iron lines beneath the earth.
Okay, bring that one up.
They began placing ribbons along those lines. The finished shape, outlined by the ribbons, was that of a huge ship, the approximate length and width of Noah's Ark, as described in the Bible. The fascinating field of ribbons soon attracted higher academic interest.
That looks like iron. Okay.
Dr. John Baumgartner, a physicist with Los Alamos Laboratories, sent samples back to the lab for analysis and confirmed that the metal they were tracing with the ribbons was indeed iron. With the width and the length known, the only remaining question was depth. By locating the depth of the hull, they could determine if the boat-shaped object had the cargo capacity described in the biblical ark. To resolve this final issue, Wyatt and Fasold brought geologist Tom Finner to Turkey with his company's heavy-duty subsurface radar equipment. Gear like this located the black box cockpit recorder on the floor of the frozen Potomac River after the Air Florida crash. It was here, several miles short of the boat-shaped site, that a waiting game began for Finner and the others. The party needed a final go-ahead from the Turkish government to complete their probe of Doomsday Mountain. The restrictions of martial law left the American explorers isolated from the outside world. Not even a telephone.
Yeah. Anyway, we're going to hang in like smell on a skunk till there's nothing left to get this done.
hanging like the smell in a skunk. The Turkish government stopped the exploration. What now?
Since we were there, Barbara, things have cooled down, and they've sent their own team of scientists in to take a look at this site. It's a very fascinating location.
While Turkish scientists and archaeologists did their own research, Ron and his associates continued their work. The next step was subsurface interface radar.
There's the longitudinal bulkhead. You ought to see them popping out, Ron.
Yeah, there they are.
Here. There's
yeah.
another one. There's the keel line right there.
Yeah.
Oh, Ron, the lines are there. The lines are there.
Okay, we're gonna walk over.
Yeah, let's walk.
Take a look.
Leave it running so everybody knows that we're not cheating here, right?
You got it, Toby.
Okay, now this is the west bulkhead. Okay, can you look through there and?
All right.
This is the west bulkhead.
All right.
That was over there, and he walked easterly. Here we start getting the longitudinal bulkheads. Here, 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 here.
Okay.
Here. You see there how it shows up?
Right.
The initial scans were very impressive, showing internal structure consistent with bulkheads and rooms. But to be sure they were interpreting the data correctly, Ron took the scan printouts to Geophysical Survey Systems, the developer and manufacturer of the radar.
This data does not represent natural geology. It's a man-made structure. These reflections are occurring very periodic, too periodic to be random natural type interface.
There was no longer any doubt that this was the remains of something man-made. In late 1986, the Turks announced their decision. The ceremony was set for June 1987. During that ceremony, the governor asked Ron to demonstrate the radar on site for the journalists and military officials. When Ron showed them a readout that he said looked like an intact timber, the governor then instructed a soldier to dig right there. What emerged was this petrified section of fossilized hand-wrought timber. Sectioning showed it to be laminated wood, 5 layers of timber glued together with pitch, clearly visible oozing from the end. This fossilized specimen shows that rivets were used in its construction. Their analysis showed that they contained iron, titanium, and aluminum, among other things, very sophisticated alloys that would be resistant to water. Specimens falling out from the lower end of the ship, identified as slag by an expert in metallurgy, indicated to Ron that Noah filled the hull with slag material from his metal production of the fittings used to build the ark. More complete radar scans revealed a ship, although damaged and collapsed in places, of very intelligent, modern design with a ramp system at the door which led to each level.
The 2 witnesses, and they will be giving testimony for 42 months, 1,260 days. They're both the same. They're going to be killed after that time, during the 43rd month, and it says that they are both killed and they are left unburied for 3.5 days. Now that 3.5 days, by the way, can be considered to be times dividing of times, which would put him towards the end, unburied towards the end, and after that they are both seen by all to go up into heaven. And this is right before Jesus is coming back, because the last trump is right after the 6th trump. All right? So that's something you got to see, because there are going to be 2 witnesses. What they are going to do is they are going to bear witness to salvation of Jesus Christ, our Messiah. Okay, they're going to bear witness where if you had any desire to love God, you would listen to them and hear them, and you would turn and you would repent. And that's what they're going to be doing. Ron Wyatt, Lord helped him find where the ark, Noah's Ark, was. The Lord helped him know where the children crossed Red Sea, where that site was. He helped tell where Mount Sinai is still. And he gave proof. So this is all on his website. The main one that the Lord helped him find is the Ark of the Covenant. And they were when he was down there. And by the way, it was right under Mount Golgotha. That was where he found it. And there was an earthquake. There was an earthquake that caused a crack, and his blood and mixed with water went down the crack of the earthquake caused, and it went right onto the mercy seat. And the angels that were down there instructed him to take the blood, the dried blood, because he saw dried blood, both on the ceiling and on the mercy seat itself, and it was on the western side, by the way, of the mercy seat. They instructed him to take the blood sample and go to an Israeli lab and have it examined, and they found 1 male chromosome and 22 female, so that would absolutely fit. And they were surprised that it was still that it would revived, and it gave them all that information. So this was a miracle. This was something this is a witness to the world. You don't believe it? You didn't see it? Okay, it's like you're like Thomas. Okay, now here's the proof. And besides that, he's going to have the 2 tables of testimony, the 2 Ten Commandments tablets that Moses received on the mountain the second time. And of course, they were in the ark. That's all. I just wanted you guys to know that you're going to recognize those 2 witnesses. They're going to be very unique. They're going to have, if they're not Moses and Elijah reincarnated, they will be men that have the spirit of Elijah, similar to John the Baptist had the spirit of Elijah. Let's do it all over again. And that's about it. It is very soon, by the way, people. And don't be afraid of it. Don't be afraid of it. We'll win. God will never forsake us. He will never leave us nor forsake us, even to the end of the world.